Hey everybody, Garry Adelman, American Battlefield Trust. It's Gettysburg 157, and here we are on the southern end of the Confederate line. This is the line of Hood's division, and we're near the right of that division, where the Texans and maybe near the Arkansans, and then the Alabamians are off this way. You might be able to see some stuff behind me. You might be able to see the Bushman House. You might be able to see the round tops over there. And this is a question. Now, before we even get into the fighting, we have to talk about what the plans are. And what we definitely have are a few different plans. You've got Jubal Early's plan. Hey, generally, anyone but me should move around that way. And then you've got Longstreet's plan, who might want to take the whole army and interpose between the Union Army here at Gettysburg and Washington, D.C., making them attack, the Confederates. And then you have a more specific plan from John Bell Hood, who wanted to take his division, about 7,000 soldiers, and move around Big Round Top. And there he can disrupt enemy trains, control the Taneytown Road, scare the largest army in the world into a costly retreat. Tim, can you sort all this out? Tim Smith, Licensed Battlefield Guide.
Well, like Gary had said, there are different plans for the day of on July 2nd, and what ends up happening is not really anybody's plan. Robert E. Lee's plans were kind of upset when he got his troops down here in a position, and the Northern Army's line extended much further than anyone believed. So they had to do something slightly different. Now, as Gary mentioned, Longstreet has been proposing and will continue to propose that they make a larger flanking movement around the Northern Army, in between the Northern Army and Washington, D.C., find a defensive position and let the Northern Army attack you. The basic problem with that premise is the fact that the South Mountain Range is not that far away behind the camera. And Longstreet's men would not have been able to pass between here and the mountain range, especially considering the fact that a large portion of the Northern Army is moving northward along those roads he would have to use to go southward. So the only possible way for the Southern Army to have moved around to between here and Washington, D.C., would be to cross the mountain range back into the Cumberland Valley and then move down through Maryland and then recross the mountain range somewhere else. And the logistics of that are mind-boggling. And of course, to do something like that, you would have had to have something like cavalry in front of you to screen the movement, and Jeb Stuart still hasn't arrived yet. So I will bet you when Lee, Longstreet are talking about this, Longstreet proposes such an idea, Lee dismisses it automatically because he already understands all the issues and how complicated this movement would be. Now Hood, John Bell Hood, gets into position, and he's not happy at all. He thought that McLaws was charging up Gettysburg Road, Hood would come in behind him, and Hood would charge up behind McLaws and be like a sledgehammer hitting the Union line. But when he got out of here, and the Northern line is much farther extended than Lee had anticipated, McLaws puts his line in position, Hood's moved beyond, and basically Hood is looking at a frontal assault against what would ultimately become a very strong position. Now, Hood has another plan also, and I'm sure some of you know the story. He 3 times goes to Longstreet or sends aides and says, hey, let me move around the Union line and attack the Union rear. Now, this has been suggested by many popular historians, many armchair historians. In the movie Gettysburg, based on the novel The Killer Angels, they point this out. And almost everyone who talks about this thinks this is a really good idea, that they should have done this. Well, this is like the stupidest idea I've ever heard. Think about it. It's already 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And let's let Hood do it. How many men are we giving Hood? We going to give him his whole division? And then how long is it going to take him to get in position? He's going to have to march down the Emmitsburg Road a mile. He's going to have to march 2 or 3 miles across Ridge Road and then Night Road. And then he's going to have to move up behind that position. It's going to take at least an hour. And is he going to try to keep connected with the rest of the army? Is he going to detach his entire force from the army? What's McLaws going to do for the next hour? Is he going to stand there looking across at Sickles and the Peach Orchard and just wave? And what if the Hood's division moves away? Is the Northern Army just going to sit there for an hour and just watch and wait for the Southerners to get in position? What if the Northern Army attacks McLaws while Hood is gone? this whole concept is preposterous. And if Hood gets over there an hour later, the whole 6th Army Corps is in position to fall on him. But here's what happens. Because what occurs doesn't work out for the Southerners, we assume that anything else would have been a better idea. And in fact, it probably wasn't a better idea.
Wow, I was hoping all day yesterday Tim was going to get that worked up, and that's a way to start the day, man. Hashtag stupidest idea I ever heard, and I think it's really important to look at this stuff. You're with the American Battlefield Trust. Thanks so much for joining us for our Gettysburg 157 coverage. Make sure you share this stuff with your friends, and make sure you study American history or watch your favorite documentaries or movies and read your favorite books on your own and share those with the people in your lives. You might spark a history interest that can carry them through the rest of their lives, and they can become better citizens. Now, there is a lot I want to address about what Tim said, and I agree with just about all of it, which is just great. The view is good from the cheap seats. It's so easy to say, considering something didn't work out, something else they should have done. And what is Hood going to do? Is he a mini army of 7,000 confronting the 9,500 Union soldiers going exactly where Hood was supposed to go? They'd already been ordered there. To explore this a little bit more, let me bring on our good friend Chris Mackowski from the Emerging Civil War. He wrote 4 new books this week alone, and he's our good friend. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks so much for having me, Gary. I'm just fascinated listening to Tim talk about this because not only because it's cool to see him get all worked up, but because there is so much post-war confusion about what Hood does or doesn't do, so much armchair generaling. A lot of that has to do with confusion between Longstreet's real intense desire to sweep around, as he talked about, and get between the Union Army and Washington, and his disagreement with Lee about fighting here at Gettysburg in the first place. So a lot of people think about Longstreet going around the Union Army. That sort of strategic operational level often gets confused with what happens with Hood on a more tactical level, where Hood has to kind of sweep around, trying to respond to events on the field, adapting as they're getting new intelligence. But those are two sweep around the left flank movements that often get conflated. Add to that some really hard feelings by Lafayette McLaws. Fallout after Knoxville between he and Longstreet. The two have bad blood between them that extend from here, continuing on out to Tennessee. So after the war, McLaws feeling his nose really bent out of shape about this because he was supposed to lead the march. And suddenly when he gets into position, finds out that he's not gone far enough, Hood leapfrogs past him. And that creates some bad feelings as well. And so that clouds the issue as people try to deconstruct what actually happened, what worked, what didn't work, and why. I'm going to bring Gary back on here because he's got some stuff he wants to deconstruct as well.
Yeah, not even. I'll just wrap it up with this. All of these discussions, we like to do it. We can't resist. We have to argue about it. This is what we do about American history and battles in particular because they're so costly when they don't go well. They're costly when they do go well. In any case, all these discussions, whether Early was going to move around or Longstreet or Hood, first of all, none of that happened. But secondly, about Hood's, which is the one piece that seems to get the most attention, Hood sort of did that stuff sort of anyway. He did, in fact, take most of his division and go much further to the right. He did, in fact, separate, in a way, from McLaws' division. He did go further east and not up the Emmitsburg Road as he was supposed to. And I don't know if it's true. I highly suspect it myself. But about 40 years after the battle, a Texan was heard by another Texan to overhear at a reunion that Philip A. Work, I think, said, that Hood said, after Longstreet rode away and said, no, you got to go up the Emmitsburg Road. We must obey the orders of General Lee. He said, very well. When I get under fire, I will have a digression. You all can try to judge the validity of that, but that's sort of what happened anyway. Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Chris. Thanks to Chris White behind the camera. And thank you all for watching and, of course, for supporting Battlefield Preservation.